Hey boys and girls, so I'm going to be doing a story and a project today on our Artist of the Month. So before we get started listening to this story, you're going to need to find that bag of different colored shapes that was in the bag you picked up from my house or I dropped off, and this black piece of paper or another piece of construction paper, whatever color you want. You don't necessarily have to use the black. If you don't have that, or if yours got ripped or you used it for something else, you'll just need any color piece of paper and this bag of shapes that was in your bag. So you'll want to grab those two things. I'm going to read you a little story about our artist first, and then we're going to do this project together, okay? All right, so our Artist of the Month is a gentleman by the name of Matisse is his last name. Now his first name, when we read it, we sometimes read it as Henri because that's how we would say it in English. But to pronounce it the way he was named, he was from France, it is Henri Matisse. Okay, and this one's called Henri's Scissors. And you'll see why as we go through this story. Great story about him. Okay. I'm going to scoot over this way so you're able to see the pages as I read up close. It says, in a small weaving town in France, a young boy named Henri Matisse watched his mother paint china, and he wanted to paint too. Can you see the interesting shapes she's painting on that china? Look like flowers, don't they? Okay. Henri drew pictures in the sand, and he drew pictures in all of his school books. Can you see up close there? Now, what do you notice about the backgrounds in these pictures? Yeah, interesting, just shapes, different kinds of shapes and objects in the background. Here you can see, right, leaves, shapes in the background, and he's drawing different shapes in his notebook as well. When Henri was a young man, he drew pictures in his books and on contracts, deeds, and wills. So even with his regular job, he was always drawing, wasn't he? Interesting. Look at all the different shapes he's making. Henri was sick in bed with appendicitis one winter. His mother gave him a box of paints, and he painted until he was well. So he got to do a lot of painting. He kept on painting, forgot about law, and left his small town to be an artist in Paris. Oh, there's the Eiffel Tower. Henri painted pictures day after day and year after year. Again, look at all these interesting shapes. He was happy, and his paintings made people happy. The interesting color he used in his paintings. Look at that. I love this one, right? Different colors on each side. But when Matisse was an old man, he fell ill. So ill he couldn't paint, so ill he couldn't sit up, and so ill he could only lie in bed and sleep. His paintings floated by in his dreams. Matisse finally opened his eyes, and they were filled with sadness. Oh, can you tell? Look at that. Yep. Now he must remain in bed or use a wheelchair. Would he ever have the energy to paint again? I know the answer to that question. When Matisse was strong enough to travel, he went to the seaside. The sea air might help him get well. Before long, he sat up, and a little later, he started to draw again. You see, what do you think he's drawing there? Looks like a face. Here he drew a tree. Here we go. Watch this. Then one day, Matisse picked up a pair of scissors and cut out shapes from painted paper. He was drawing with his scissors. A pair of scissors is a wonderful instrument. So look at that. He just started to cut different colored pieces of paper, all different shapes. Some of them look like things we recognize, don't they? That looks like a heart. And others were just shapes. This might be a banana, maybe a little flower or something, right? He wasn't trying to make anything specific. He just really enjoyed cutting out shapes. Matisse cut paper all day long. His assistants would paint the paper for him all day, and then he would cut it all out. And here's a quote that he said, "My pleasure in cutting things out grows even greater. Why didn't I think of this earlier?" Right? There's so many different ways to make art, isn't there, boys and girls? We can draw, we can paint, we can cut things out, right? Paper cutouts covered his walls. He says, "It seems to me that I am in a second life." That means he found a new purpose, even though he couldn't walk, right? He found a new purpose and a new way to make art. And as we used to talk about in school, boys and girls, art makes us very happy, right? Sitting and coloring and creating things, being creative with our talents is something that brings us a lot of joy, doesn't it? It's really fun to create new things. Look at all these beautiful, these were all made out of paper that he cut out. Aren't they beautiful? One evening, Matisse lay in bed and drew the faces of his grandchildren on the ceiling with a piece of chalk tied to a very long pole. As he fell asleep, they looked down on him and saw his dreams. So how clever. Look, he isn't able to get out of bed or sit up, right, or stand, but he put a very long pole and put chalk on the end and drew those beautiful faces of his grandchildren. Then he could see them every day. How fun would it be to try that? If we were still in school, boys and girls, we were going to try a little bit of something like that with a long pole and drawing. So maybe you can find a long pole at home, attach a marker or a piece of chalk or something you can draw with at the end and draw from a distance on a piece of paper. It would be fun. I might try that and send you a video. They saw the shapes that surrounded him in his sleep. Do you see anything specific in those shapes? Oh, this one to me reminds me of a bird, doesn't it? Do you see something in there? Lots of people see different things. As time went on, Matisse cut bigger and bigger shapes. They filled his seaside room with color. You see, as I am obliged to remain often in bed, I have made a little garden all around me where I can walk. There are leaves, fruits, and a bird. So even though he couldn't get out of bed and walk, he could be in his space with all those beautiful shapes. Imagine having a room covered in those beautiful shapes. Wouldn't that be lovely? Oh, look, yep. I am deeply connected and happy, he says. Looks like a big garden, doesn't it? Oh, I would love that. So fun. Then one night, Matisse walked into his paper garden, and the rainbow of shapes cradled the old artist and carried him to the heavens. Now, you often ask me, boys and girls, about our artists, if they're still living, and nope, Matisse is no longer living. But he lived a wonderful life and made beautiful, beautiful art. Are some of the stars we see at night coming to us from Henri's scissors? Perhaps. Isn't that fun to imagine him up there cutting out beautiful stars and shapes, things that we see in our sky and space? Beautiful. So that's the story about Henri's scissors. He made lots of beautiful art, but is most well known for the shapes that he cut out. And what a wonderful thing to do in his situation. Some people might have given up and said, oh, I can't get out of bed, I can't stand, so I can't do art anymore. And he found a new way to make art. How fun, huh? Okay, so would you get your scissors, right? Or I'm sorry, not your scissors, your bag, this bag, right? And your black paper. All right, and I'm going to stop this. We're going to do a part 2, and I'm going to show you how you can put your own art together like Henri Matisse. Okay, I'll be right back, boys and girls. Go get your things.